This is PKF Texas Entrepreneurs Playbook. I'm Russ Capper, this week's guest host, and I'm coming to you from the Gulf Coast Regional Family Forum. And I'm very pleased to have as my guest now Richard Gruber, co-founder and chief commercial officer of Meredith SI. Richard, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You bet. Tell us about Meredith SI.
Meredith SI is a two-year-old firm headquartered in Houston.
Okay.
And our focus is developing renewable strategies and solutions for energy, water, and chemical companies to help them drive lower costs, reduce their emissions, and improve their overall stakeholder awareness.
Okay. So renewables, are we talking about solar and wind?
Principally solar,
Okay.
and solar with battery storage,
Okay.
and typically with advanced controls,
Okay.
and located at their points of demand for these companies. So where they consume it is where we site it.
Okay. So which of those three, 2 years old, you're still relatively new, which of those three are you having the most success?
And we're focused very much in the pipeline side.
Okay.
So with energy companies
Okay.
that have existing or building new infrastructure in principally the crude product or NGL space, but also gas processing plants and other places where they have high demand, so refineries, chemical plants, fractionators, all those kinds of
Okay,
things.
that's really interesting. So you're taking solar energy to the oil and gas companies, essentially.
Yeah, we're integrating it into their infrastructure
Okay.
in a smart way.
Okay, and how are you being received?
We're being received well. Everybody wants to hear about it. Everyone's interested.
Okay.
But it takes a C-suite sponsorship in the cultures of these firms, I think, to get decisions made. Folks have to feel safe that the CEO says, okay, I think that makes sense. Let's go take a look at it. And when we get to that C-suite level and have that dialogue and explain the opportunity, it moves much faster.
Okay, so I would think, without knowing much in detail, that you're both potentially saving money and reducing emissions in the environment. Is that right?
Yeah, those are the two drivers, and the first one is really cost savings. It doesn't really go anywhere with the companies we talk to if we're not driving down operating costs.
Okay.
And the emissions reduction is another benefit.
Okay.
There are a couple of other opportunities, though, and one is operating resilience. So where the grid is not as stable as in other locations, or to prepare against a Hurricane Sandy event or other types of uncontrolled events.
Okay.
To the extent they've got on-site generation or adjacent with some battery storage, they may not be able to go 24/7 in their operation, but if they can operate 8 to 10 hours a day and maintain until the grid's back up, it's certainly an advantage versus their peers.
Okay.
And keeps the cash register moving.
Okay. For those of us who don't know in detail what a pipeline looks like along the way, I assume at various points along any pipeline that's headed downstream, there's some kind of pump generation there that's technically, usually powered by electricity.
That's right. Certainly in the liquids, if you're moving liquids, water, natural gas liquids, or crude or products, gasoline, it's exclusively, typically, electric driven.
Okay.
And it's very power dense, and it's a great place if you think about the rural part of the country to get crude from where it's produced to where people want to consume it or refine it. There's a lot of opportunity in those pump stations every 80 miles.
Every 80 miles. Okay, power dense, meaning they use a lot of electricity.
They do. They use a lot of power at that point and push that crude down the stream to the next pump station.
Okay, so you can't replace that power completely with solar.
That's right. We complement what they have with the grid. So they're never worse off reliability-wise because they're always connected to the grid.
Okay.
Our controls architecture makes sure that this interconnects behind the utility meter,
Okay.
effectively providing them wholesale power to offset their retail price that they're paying.
Okay.
In essence.
Okay.
And so that's the advantage.
Okay. So does it work when it works, when the solar powered pump works? Are you not using anything from the grid, or does it assist power from the grid?
It depends on the sizing of the facility and some of the market rules, but there are times where all of the power would be going to run all the capacity at their pumps. Okay. And the pump doesn't know. It's a kilowatt, right? Okay. It's right. Happy as it can be.
That's right. But you have a history of being in the solar business, right?
Right. We were very early. The founder, co-founder with me, Tom Custer, and I were officers at First Solar.
Okay.
And we actually started developing solar power plants for the grid before we were adopted, if you will, into First Solar. So back in 2007, we developed some of the early utility scale power plants in the U.S.
Okay.
And after that, did several gigawatts, several thousand megawatts of projects we developed, designed, engineered, constructed, and integrated into the grid. So.
Okay, well, I've sort of had a history of doing interviews with people like yourselves and people in oil and gas, and I'm always told about the density and the portability of fossil fuels, but I've also noticed that the cost of solar continues to come down. Adding battery function to it has really made a significant difference. I'm even under the opinion that solar can survive now without subsidies. Is that accurate?
If you look at studies from people like Lazard, they've looked at tax credit and post-tax credit competitiveness of a number of technologies, fossil and renewables. And it shows today that these technologies, for the time of day they deliver the power, which is an expensive time of day, that they are more cost-effective than the alternatives.
Really interesting. So you're set up along a pipeline. I mean, is it mechanically significant? I mean, you don't even have an extra pump, you just have an extra source of electricity, but your extra source of electricity has to have photovoltaic solar collectors, right?
That's right, that's right. And I don't want to focus too much on the pipeline segment. There are other parts, as we said, that are in the value chain of that industry vertical and others. It's simply where power dense work needs to happen to process something, move something, drive something. Probably the key element is, can they consume the power across the time frame during the day consistently when we're producing? So.
And I guess water would be similar to an oil pipeline, but what would chemistry and using it for chemicals, how would you benefit the producer at that point?
Well, they're just, to process chemicals is just an energy intensive business. Actually, turning natural gas into LNG is a very energy intensive business. So,
a lot of that going on
these days too. That's right. So.
So before I let you go, I'm curious. The name is Merit SI. What's the SI stand for?
It stands for Sustainable Infrastructure, because we think the model is to have sustainable cost advantage compared to your peers, reduce your risk, both cost-wise and operating-wise, and enhance the sustainable relationship with a whole host of stakeholders. We have not gone to one place where employees have not been across the board, regardless of demographic, role within the firm, gender, have not been enthusiastic to think that their company is looking at this.
That's cool.
And so we think institutional shareholders feel the same way, and regular shareholders and board members, because I think they think it's smart business.
Well, Richard, I really appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Thanks, Russ.
You bet.
Pleasure.
You bet. And that wraps up my discussion with Richard Gruber with Merit SI. This has been another Thought Leader production brought to you by PKF Texas Entrepreneurs Playbook.